Hi, Riccardo. Thank you for joining us today. You have been awarded the Niras Award in the last edition of the Danish Culture Forum, and I have read your abstract. I have a lot of questions. I remember actually talking to you in the beginning of your studies about this and how exciting it was. So to make it clear to everyone, I'll just ask you to shortly present the main concepts of your research, and then we'll go deeper and deeper on it and make sure that everyone can follow what you have done.
All right, thank you, Ines, and thank you for the opportunity to present my work. We'd also like to thank the Danish Culture Forum and Niras for the award. So the paper that we just published a paper and it has been accepted actually last week. So it will be available in water research from probably next week or the next one. And is about integrating process-based models with machine learning. And I will be a bit more in detail about these terms. So the problem statement starts with contaminated sites, and that is a worldwide problem. What we did in my PhD mostly, and in this research in particular, is that we developed innovative technologies to remediate contaminated sites because some present more challenges than others. For instance, if there is clay and that is contaminated, it's much more difficult to clean up than sand. So among the different remediation technologies that exist, there is one called electrokinetic remediation that uses electric fields to mobilize contaminants in the low permeability formations. When you apply an electric field, the processes that occur are very different from what you get by only pumping water, and that is the traditional way that is done. So what my PhD is about is to investigate processes that occur during this remediation technology to understand better what happens and to be able to optimize the technique, so to reduce the overall cost. What I model these processes, I use very complex models, and for that, in particular, I actually developed a model that uses COMSOL multiphysics, which is a finite element solver, and FreakC, which is a geochemical calculator. We spent a significant amount of my PhD developing that. And in the end, it works. It works, but to solve all these 2D models with very complex equations, it takes time. And for instance, only for a pilot scale applications, it took 8 hours. So since this project has been sponsored by the capital region of Denmark, I wanted to give them something that they could use in the end, because you cannot give them a software that uses a commercial tool that is quite expensive, and that you need a significant amount of expertise to be able to do it. So I thought, how could I make that more accessible to everyone and also faster to run than 8 hours? So I ended up using artificial intelligence to do it, and in particular, neural network. We used a class of models called surrogate models, which basically take the outputs of process-based models, which use the full physics. We take the outputs, and by using many model repetitions, we are able to fit a function, which in this case is a full neural networks, and we can get the outputs. The benefit is that once you get all this neural network trained, you can get the outputs instead of 8 hours, you get in a millisecond. So that is very, very efficient if you want to run Monte Carlo simulations. Let's say, instead of getting one parameter, because when you measure something in the field, you don't get one number, you get probably a distribution. You can simulate Monte Carlo simulations using that probability function. You can use many inputs with many probability functions, and you can get something out of it, which has an uncertainty range. And that gives you a much better information on how confident are you in using the model. Plus, in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, there has been a significant improvement and democratization also of these machine learning tools, with some very known libraries in Python, which make also possible to run these simulations on the cloud. For instance, the model that I did is actually hosted on Google Colab, which is a platform that everyone can access, and also the capital region could run these models quite easily without knowing all the details of the mathematical framework or the geochemistry of the site, for instance. But if in the future they want to change one parameter, they can. It's just a slider, they change it and they run it. And in a few seconds, it's done.
Well, I'm really impressed, Riccardo. I have a lot of questions. You touched in a lot of aspects of your research and also somehow of the age where we are today to do research that led me to a lot of questions. The first one, I'm really excited to hear about what is your background, because you're talking now about machine learning and AI like you were a computer scientist. So I'm just trying to understand what is your background exactly?
It's environmental engineering, but throughout this study, I also studied quite importantly the artificial intelligence, machine learning first, and then went into software developing, so to make algorithms and to make different software communicate. And in the last year, I also went on and studied web development, because I wanted to be able to put these models that run on single computers on the cloud. And I mentioned Google Colab, but that is a web service hosted by Google and so on, but you cannot integrate it to a website. So I went one step further and take a model that you train in Python or whatever and put it in a website to make plots.
Wow, I just feel like this touches upon this amazing, well, I hope that you shared this with me, but this need to bring research closer to practice and bring research closer to the end user, and the reason that the fact that you have that as a concern and that concern drives your ambition to actually deliver is really, really inspiring. I find it, I take so much energy to hear like other people's stories on like that, because it means a lot to me. Also, you touched upon the open source. I mean, even water research now is open source, because IWA had made this decision of opening all the journals for open source, which is great, because I'm in the industry side, so I'm working in the industry, and sometimes I would like to have access to some articles and I couldn't, right? So now I know that I can, and it just makes me much more close to the latest research and then to the implementation, of course. But you also touched upon the code being open source. Is that right? Or is it only the database, or also like the whole algorithm that is available for modification? What is it? There's no proprietary?
So far, we didn't publish it because I believe that to be able to publish something, you also need to provide documentation in order to other users to be able to use it in the right way, because you can simulate or you can make mistakes, for instance, if you don't understand exactly what happens. But so far, I didn't have the time to be able to write a comprehensive documentation. So at the moment, we just use the model to write the paper. But upon request, of course, I can share the code, but then I need to make a presentation on how to use it. And then I think is fundamental. For instance, many tools that you find online, for instance, Google Colab, there are engineers that just make the tools, they make it open source, but then they always make a documentation. So this is something that we don't think maybe beforehand, or maybe say, oh, I wanted to make open source. Yes, you can do it. But then you should also explain to people how to use it, because I find many interesting tools online, but either they are too complex to use because they require specific knowledge of the software, or you don't find documentation at all. They might not be maintained because other people don't take up the exact purpose of the tool. So there is much more, I think, than put it on GitHub and make it available to people.
I completely agree. Yes. I've been, so I think that, and that's another point that I want to talk to you a little bit is, I've also felt the need during the PhD to invest in my digital skills, in my development of applications and coding, but I was using R, so I'm not as advanced, but I was using a lot GitHub, of course. And it was, I did a course to learn about how to document and create all of this, backbone of what you're creating and trying to provide as a service. So of course I understand the value, and I think it's really important. But and I don't know it's Google Colab that you called it.
Yeah, because you can run Python online. It's basically you run it. Okay. Yeah, you have your Google Drive directory.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can run files there. So you save the.
Yeah. Wow. And then there. Do you do can you like fork like you do in GitHub, so you can go and grab code and then add on and perfect.
You actually can run also other people's notebooks that are public. And that is one, I don't want to make an advertisement, but it's just one of the tools that can do that.
Yeah, of course. No, but we talked about it. Yeah, that's fine. But the point that I wanted, it seems like it is a tendency for us to learn more about this digital ways for us to exchange knowledge and translate knowledge, and how that right now I feel like if you are a researcher and you don't have a lot of knowledge on coding, you can lag a little bit behind. There is a requirement nowadays to either to execute models or then to pass them on, or to ensure that they are well documented. It's just something that it's of high value right now currently.
Yeah, I think that it depends on the PhD, because I don't want to say, everyone should learn how to code in Python or MATLAB. That it depends on the PhD and on the person. What I would like to see much more often are courses specifically on coding and modeling in master studies. So not only researchers, but also master students should know how to code, how to document the code, how to share the code and distribute it. So to know how these little tricks.
I completely agree. It's really fun because after I did the PhD, I was wondering, where did my love for writing algorithms or just thinking in this logical manner came from? And it took me back to my secondary years in school or gymnasium here in Denmark, where I had a teacher, IT teacher, that he would teach us like Word and Excel and PowerPoint, this is ages ago. And he also taught us Visual Basic. And I just felt like, and that was my first contact with coding, and I feel like it shaped me. So now when we have students that can have access to that, not only in gymnasium, maybe even before, and then complement that with aligned content in the master studies. When I say aligned, I mean that goes hand in hand with whatever they're studying, because I also learned to program in MATLAB, for example, in the university. I just feel like it will promote such a big energy on digital tools that will come up, and software and new ways to look at data. I'm really excited for the times to come. But I want to ask you, when did you realize that this passion was inside you somehow? So for me, it was like, I can go back to my secondary years, like my gymnasium years. What about you? Where was your first contact? How old were you?
When I came to Denmark, to be honest.
Nice. No, but it's really interesting because right after you started with Jan Michael,
yeah, exactly.
A group with young water professionals, right? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so going back to 2017, when I came to Denmark to do the Master of Environmental Engineering at DTU, the first semester, remember I took the modeling course, which also then became the starting point of everything, which we spent a significant amount of time modeling, but also collaborating with other people and documenting the software. In the beginning, I was quite afraid because, before the Bachelor of Physics, I didn't even open MATLAB. So 6 months before, I knew almost nothing. But then I started coding and coding and coding, and then became better and better. And I thought, okay, I kind of like it. So then I joined the Young Water Professionals. We went on bike tours, we went to presentations, and then I went to know, as you said, Jan Michael. And he came up with this idea of starting a work group on artificial intelligence. So the idea was to meet with interested people and share advances or discovery or topics that we thought were interesting. We touched upon algorithms, neural networks, I remember, image classification, recognition, and then there was also augmented reality, virtual reality, and that was for me completely out of my curriculum. But it was something really interesting because I started Googling these things, seeing that there were actually a lot of contents around in YouTube, for instance. So I started to grab wherever information I could, and I also started doing things. So copying things from GitHub, and then it took off from there, actually. So it was a quite fast journey. But,
yeah. No, it's really
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking how the PhD journey is, and you know, I kind of feel like when we are asked to be or to challenge ourselves, because that's what happens in a PhD, I believe. I mean, there's a lot of things that you realize about yourself. There's a lot of things that you learn. And then you're also called for action, meaning like use all the tools you have to like solve this issue. And then suddenly you had this tool available, and out of curiosity, maybe you start to have a small toolkit, and then suddenly developed into something more. And I really like it because, and you say that it was not like your main knowledge, it was this curiosity bubble that you had that then complemented the way that you did your main work. And then I would almost dare to say that it almost took over. I don't want to say that like completely took over, but it really played a big role. And I think it's so important that we follow our curiosities and embrace them as new tools that will add on to our work. It will add on to our way to see life and our understanding of the world and other realities, you know. So I'm just really inspired by your work, and it's really nice to hear, Riccardo. I think that the first time that I talked to you about your studies, it was right in the beginning, and I was very interested in the technology itself, right? And now I made no questions about the technology because everything will be open access in What Research. And they can read all about it. I'm more interested about the process of creation of this, you know. But at that time, you were very like you had a clear idea of what you wanted to do, and you wanted to do model already. Like you were talking to me about models, but you are not talking about this transition of knowledge that I think it's just the next step, and it's really important for us to give as young researchers. How do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself in research? What are the challenges as a young researcher looking for a career? How has academia treating you?
Academia for me has been a fantastic experience because it gave me all the tools and the time to learn and to develop. As you said, I started and I was curious. And after the curiosity came the passion and came the willingness to try and to build things. And after that, it came the point in which I said, okay, but I can do something, so let's do it. So after that, I see myself working in between research and development, can be software development, can be web development, can also be academia. Could be all of those, but that we'll see. I will finish the PhD by the end of November this year. And let's see, because I think there are so many fascinating possibilities afterwards. Because in Denmark, I'm so glad that actually I did a PhD at DTU, because sustainability is at the core of the business. So I see myself working in so many possibilities in which you can make a difference. You can make something that actually is used and that is for the benefit of the environment. And that is not just words, but actually you can see it from what is being done.
Yes, I agree. We are both expats and actually from Southern Europe and doing PhDs in Denmark. And it's quite fortunate that I feel like here there are not only the market that recognizes sustainability as a value proposition for a business, but also that research tries to give a response and fight in that direction. It is impressive, and I gained a lot from that, as I can see that you did as well. But when you think about PhD finishing now, I'm sure you graduate. I look forward to actually listening to your defense. How do you, if you think about a postdoc, how, I don't know how it is. I didn't pursue a postdoc, so I don't know how it works. Is it like a 1 year, 2 year contract? How does it work? What is the career looking like in academia?
It depends on the funding that you manage to get. You can write applications, and there are several applications, both nationals and internationals. The chances, though, are quite limited. So you need to write several applications in different fields, write different proposals, and you hope to be the lucky one to get it. Otherwise, another way that I see that is actually working quite well is to do similar to research and development for companies. And that I think is a very nice way of doing, because you can still advance with science, but you do science applied to a certain technology. And that will be, for instance, my case if I proceed with a postdoc. So
you can do an industrial postdoc also, right?
That is a possibility, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I moved to industry like hoping for that, and that connection for me is key. So I'm again very aligned with you. I think we're about, I mean, this conversation is supposed to be like 15 to 20 minutes, and I kind of feel we're getting there. But both of us are expats, and both of us entered Young Water Professionals Denmark. And so I want to touch a little bit on that. And I don't know if you're aware that the current government has actually taken some measures to limit the amount of international students in universities. And I'm very concerned about that, because I just feel like it adds so much to the country, and it adds so much to our, I understood Denmark while I was studying in Denmark, not when I was working. When I was working, I was already aware of Danish culture. So I'm just thinking about these enablers of understanding Danish culture for expats. One of them is for sure the university. Another would be Young Water Professionals Denmark. So I wanted to ask you, how have those two drivers changed your relation with Danish culture?
For sure, when I came to Denmark, of course, I had still an Italian mentality, I would say, because I lived 23 years in Italy. But soon I started to change and to adapt with the culture. And for me, it was an incredible benefit to come to Denmark. Also, I gained a lot, and for sure it's something that I recommend to many, many students that have the curiosity to experience another culture, another point of view, I don't want to say other values, but a different way of seeing society and the strategy that we're facing. I've seen many international students coming, maybe only for a semester, and being so happy about the experience. So what I would like that doesn't change is people visiting. Maybe cannot be for 2 years, but I would like still that they come at least for a semester. They will be so helpful because many of them also stay and find a job.
Yes, and find a way to contribute and to give back,
Exactly.
and currently I'm seeing Europe as a kind of a country. I mean, I'm seeing Europe as my platform to give back to my home country, to Denmark, to the world, So that's how I'm seeing it, and we're all very close by here in Europe. And what about young water professionals?
I joined, I think, the first semester that I came, and I'm here again talking to you after 4 years almost. So it has been a great value for me, and I tried to join as many events as I could because I could find like-minded people. We shared many interests, so it has been great fun. I learned a lot, and I will continue for as long as I can, or at least for as long as I'm younger than 35, to be part of
Right.
it and to
I don't know, how
contribute.
old are you, Riccardo, now?
27 so far.
Oh God, you have your whole young or professional life ahead. I'm the one like is lagging behind. I'm like on my last 2 years. Um, yeah, and I think that actually Danish Water Forum is I found to be a perfect almost continuation of the contribution that I've been trying to give to the sector. This proximity between people and different stakeholder positions within the water sector. And so I'm really happy that I'm, ending my young water professional journey, but still having this role now in the Danish Water Forum where I can continue to contribute to the sector and have this really interesting conversations. So I will end this talk here, if that's okay with you. I really appreciate it, Riccardo. I cannot wait to visit you. Maybe when next time I'm in Copenhagen, I'll let you know, and and let's see if
Fantastic.
it's possible. And yeah, thank you so much for having time to join us, and congrats on winning the Niras Award.
Thank you so much, Ines.